And I'm Patty Shetter. I am one of the co-coordinators of Captain. I am a BCBA by training, but actually was a program specialist for several years within two SELPAs prior to transitioning to my current role at the UC Davis Mind Institute. I have been co-coordinating Captain with Anne since actually before its inception. We were on the Blue Ribbon Commission together, and this was kind of our brainchild. And since 2008, things have really flourished, and we're just so proud to be able to support you all in this network. My major passion is making sure that families and kids get to experience evidence-based practices. And we know that there's a huge piece of that that means that teachers and providers have to know how to use them in order for families and kids to benefit from them. So my work for about the last 10 years has really been around implementation and implementation science, getting those practices that we know work to be done well by the people who can then influence the outcomes for the kids. Boot camp this afternoon, here's our schedule. We're going to be convening together from 2:15 till about 4:15. And those of you, again, who are earning the CEUs, just a reminder to make sure that you have named yourself properly so we can keep track of your participation and attendance, and that you do keep your camera on. There are going to be opportunities for you guys to share in the chat, ask questions in the chat, come off mute and ask questions and share ideas and resources. So hopefully this afternoon will be a little bit more interactive for y'all. Our goals for this afternoon are to basically review the additional cadre requirements that are unique to you guys as school or SELPA cadre members. I'm going to basically walk you through the steps for doing your cadre work in the schools and orient you to all of the forms that are used to help you do your cadre work. And this isn't the end-all be-all. This is going to set the stage for your deeper learning of how to perform those cadre requirements. Everyone who's been in cadre in Captain will tell you it's going to take you a year, maybe two, to really feel competent and feel like you understand what it is that you're doing and how to do it really, really well. We've set up a lot of resources for you guys to be able to support you in learning how to do this work, including a professional network that's going to be offering some ongoing professional learning opportunities for you, and the mentoring of people within your region. And I know Marissa talked about that at the end of the last session, but getting connected with someone in your region who's been doing this for a little while, going to those meetings and asking those questions and getting support from people who have been doing this is really, I think, the priceless part of being a member of this network, is being able to learn from and with others. So you guys all know about the Captain requirements. The person who nominated you for Captain should have gone over them with you before they put your name in. And part of their role, the person who nominated you, your agency leader, your direct supervisor, is to make sure that you have the support and the resources that you need to be able to fulfill these requirements. You have the requirement to attend boot camp, the requirement to attend the summit, the requirement to take that Foundations of ASD class through the Affirm modules. You're going to be asked to complete an annual survey at the end of the year, giving us information about what you've been doing and what your needs are. But in addition to those things, these are the requirements that are actually unique to you guys as school cadre. The first one is to provide an information session for or within your SELPA that really covers what autism is, what Captain is, and what those EBPs for autism are. And we have this already prepared for you. You don't have to invent this training. It's there, it's on the Captain website. But the expectation is that you're going to do at least one of these per year as an offering to help disseminate information about autism and evidence-based practice within your SELPA and your region. You also are expected to provide 3 high-quality workshop trainings in specific EBPs. So those 28 evidence-based practices that we covered earlier, you're required to do a training on 3. Now, we're not going to tell you which 3. That's going to be up to local decision making and local need. It could be the same one 3 times for 3 different audiences. It can be, 3 that you're doing for paraeducators. It could be 3 that you're doing for gen ed teachers. You guys are going to be making the decisions about what these EVPs are and who your audience are based on your local needs assessment, and working with your SELPA directors and your agency leaders about what the highest area of needs might be. You're also required to provide high quality coaching for 3 teachers or 3 programs within your SELPA. And we're going to go over what that looks like and what that means, using an implementation checklist for our coaching process. And this is something that, when I said it's going to take you a while to kind of get comfortable with your captain role, coaching is something that you have to get comfortable with, especially if you haven't been doing it. But getting comfortable with the captain methods and our model for doing coaching does take some time and some support. So cut yourself some slack on that one, and know that that's not going to be one that's going to come super easily to you. I know that a lot of our cadre have really had to make some adjustments when it comes to this requirement. The other option, instead of providing coaching for 3 teachers or programs, is that you could provide training for 3 additional coaches on our captain model of coaching. And a lot of our cadre members that are from multi-district SELPAs, that are maybe in like a program specialist role, where they work in big districts and their big districts have behavior specialists and autism specialists, find this to be a really good option. Rather than going in and working directly with the teachers, they're working with those program specialists or behavior specialists and teaching them how to do high quality training and high quality coaching. So that's another option that you have. And it can be a really good option for building capacity. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as we go on. I wanted to orient you guys, though, to some of the terms and get you familiar with how we talk about these levels of professional development within captain. You already were exposed to the term information session. And a lot of people call this a training, but in reality, if you're doing a really short session, like a 60-minute session, whether it's at a staff meeting or at your professional development day on the first day of school, before the kids come back, or you're doing a session at a conference, the goal of doing those short presentations is to help build awareness. You're spreading information. The reality of somebody walking away from one of those short sessions being able to do the thing that you're talking about are pretty low, and research shows us that, and we're going to look at that in just a minute. But an information session, you're required to do one, and the goal really is just to disseminate some information to get people interested, to build their awareness. Here's what the research says about different training outcomes related to the type of training that you do. So up here are knowledge, skill, and actual classroom application. If we think about an information session, usually it's just presentation or lecture. You don't really have a lot of time to do much more than that if you only have 30 to 60 minutes. When we do a presentation or lecture, we end up transferring about 10% of the knowledge, and we get about 5% of the skills to be implemented. But look at this over here, 0% classroom application. Okay, so I know what you're saying. Well, very rarely do I do just lecture. When I do a training, I usually embed some kind of demonstration. Like I'm showing them how to do it. I'm showing videos. I'm modeling for them. We might even do some hands-on practice of whatever it is that I'm training them on. But let's look at those 2 categories. If you just add demonstration to training, yeah, it helps people grow their knowledge a little bit more, 30% knowledge transfer, and grow their skills a little bit more. About 20% of the skills they need to do it are going to be transferred. But look over here again, 0% classroom implementation. When you add that practice component, lots of great knowledge growth, lots of great skill growth, but only 5% of what it is that you're teaching them is actually going to get implemented in the classroom. So our goal in captain, and your goal really whenever you're investing any amount of time, energy, and effort in doing training, should be to get classroom application, right? I mean, that's why we do training. We want people to implement these strategies with their students so the students can benefit. That requires coaching, administrative support, and data that's provided in the form of feedback, student data, as well as teacher use data, fidelity data, implementation data, and we'll talk a little bit about that. That's where we actually get a change in classroom practice. Okay, so when you're thinking about this research and you're thinking about the work that you're doing for Captain, your information sessions are up here. Your trainings and workshops, we want you to use all of the things that are going to really help build people's knowledge. And then when we're talking about getting things transferred to the classroom, that's where we know that that coaching really comes into play. So workshops and trainings, here's Captain's definition of a workshop training. It's really intended to result in a measurable change in knowledge and skill of the participants. And the way that we know that we're doing that is data. We collect baseline data to figure out what do they already know. And then we collect some data after the training to see if we've been able to improve their knowledge and get them ready for application. So pre-test, post-test. We're modeling that for you right now during boot camp. All of you should have taken the pre-knowledge assessment, letting us know before this training, what did you know about Captain, about EVPs, about the Affirm modules, all of those things. And we're going to ask you to take that same test afterwards to see if we've been able to move the needle on your knowledge and your skill to get you ready to do this work. Without data, all you have is your opinion. So we collect the data to make sure that we've actually accomplished what we wanted to in a workshop or training. The time involved in training, usually it's a bit longer. It takes a lot more time to do a really high quality training where you are modeling and you are showing videos and you are doing that practice and you are giving people opportunities to plan for their next step of implementation. So the training needs to include all of those high quality components of adult learning. Should be followed by coaching in order to apply what is learned. The reality is we know you're not going to be able to do that with everyone who attends your training. However, the goal is that there would be a next step in helping the participants of your training to actually receive some coaching so that they can learn to apply. And the outcome of training, what you're hoping for is an improvement and an increase in knowledge. And then there's this highest level of practitioner coaching. And this is really intended to support the use of the skills needed to implement a new practice. It should follow training so that knowledge can be transferred to skills with actual real life students in the classroom. And it's done in cycles, and you guys are going to learn about this afternoon. Coaching isn't just a one-time thing. It's actually done in a cyclic method where you're providing some pre-observation conference with the person receiving coaching to find out where they're at and what the need is. Then you're doing an observation, and then you're following up with them afterwards to give them feedback about what you observed. And then you're repeating that cycle until they reach fidelity on that particular evidence-based practice. Coaching can be done in person, or it can be done using video conferencing. E-coaching is a thing, and the research actually tells us that it's just about as effective as doing live coaching. E-coaching is definitely a viable option, and we'll talk to you more about that during some of the professional learning later on this year if you're interested in giving that a try. We know that without coaching, only 5% of what is learned in training is actually used, so the outcome of coaching should be the use of the new practice, the demonstration of that skill. All right, now that you've heard that definition of coaching, what we've recognized over the years is that a lot of people come into Captain having done a lot of consultation, but they haven't really engaged in coaching. So I want to give you a side-by-side, the differences and the similarities between consultation versus coaching. And then I want you guys to do a little self-reflection and let us know in the chat which one that you think that you have done more of. So, consultation. It can occur one time or it can occur several times. You can have consultations that go on regularly. It's often done one-on-one or sometimes in a small group. When you're going in a consultant model, you are the expert. and you're sought out to provide some guidance and your expertise on a specific issue or need. Consultation or the consultant provides their professional input and basically tells the people that they're consulting with what to do. Here's your next step. This is what you need to do to solve the problem. And consultation sometimes doesn't involve any direct observation. You might just be interviewing people, getting information, and then giving them ideas. Coaching always involves cycles, and usually there's more than one cycle where you're meeting, you're observing, and then you're providing some information following your observation. Can be done in person or video. The outcome is the use of a new practice with fidelity. So skill demonstration is what you're going for with coaching. Coaching supports can be done into individuals, but the coach really assists the individuals receiving the coaching in them coming up with the next steps. So you're helping them to reflect, and you're really empowering them to come up with what direction they want to go in or what step they want to address next. And coaching always includes observations. You can't do coaching if you're not observing. So in the chat, I'm seeing a lot of you responding already, but do a little bit of self-reflection and think about which one you've done more of and which one you're maybe more comfortable with, because they really are two different skill sets. And I'll tell you my way of thinking about coaching. When I'm going in and coaching, my job is really to hold up the mirror. I'm holding up the mirror at the just right angle for the person that I'm working with and supporting to learn the new practice, to see what it is that they're doing, what it is they're doing well, what it is that they may want to do a little bit better, using the implementation checklist as the mirror to hold up and say, here's the things that need to be done. Which ones are you doing and which ones do we need to fine tune and improve on? All right. I am seeing a lot of people say both, and a lot of people saying consultation really more than coaching, and that's pretty common. And I also saw a comment in there about a potential barrier to coaching because it is time consuming. But guess what the research says about coaching? Coaching results in implementer change in behavior way more than consultation does. Do you think about it, adult learners? Telling isn't teaching, right? Teaching involves a whole lot more than just giving someone advice or telling them what they need to do. It involves modeling it for them. It involves having them reflect on their own practice. It involves them seeing it working in some way, shape, or form and buying into it and then getting momentum to want to do more of it. So we really know that in terms of producing the change we want with evidence-based practice, getting teachers using them the way they were intended, coaching is the most effective way to get that done. So it's going to require a change in your practice. It's going to require a change in the way that you've been doing things. And it is going to require more time, which is something to think about as you move forward. How are you going to carve out the time that's needed with those 3 teachers or programs that you're committed to providing coaching to as part of your captain requirements? How are you going to carve out the time to do that? Because it's going to take a bit more time than just consultation would have. So I mentioned before that today is kind of the task analysis for how to do this work, but it's going to take you a while to master it. So what we've done is we've set up a professional learning network for our school and SELPA cadre. I'd love to see all of you join this network. The dates are December 6th, February 7th, and April 4th from 2:30 to 4. There's no cost to you. And we're going to delve more into how to do high quality training. We're going to delve more into how to be a really effective coach, how to use different communication strategies and techniques in your coaching, some of the components of motivational interviewing, for example, and how to overcome some of the barriers that you might be encountering as you go out and try to do this work. We'll give you tips and resources, and our experienced cadre who are going to be leading this professional learning network are going to give you ideas. All right. So here are the steps for being a school's cadre. There's 10 things that you're going to be doing as a Captain Cadre member for schools. And I'm going to walk you through each one of these steps. And if you'll go to the handouts, this PowerPoint is actually in there, and it is a PowerPoint. Embedded within those slides are links to all of these resources that you'll be using for each of these steps as a Captain Cadre member. You can also find them on the Captain website. The majority of them are under Cadre resources as the quick link, because these are all of your tools. These are all of the things that you're going to be using. So step one for being a cadre, you're going to look at programs and teachers and the data about those programs and teachers in order to determine who is in need of training and coaching. And we have 3 resources that you can use through Captain to be able to take a closer look to help you assess what the needs are of different programs and teachers. The first one is called the Autism Program Environmental Rating Scales, or APERS. And this is a tool that looks at overall program quality. And it's a research-supported tool. It's been validated by research. And there are 2 different versions of it. The version that we have on the Captain website is the self-assessment form. And this is one that the teacher would do on themselves about their program. We also have a version that our regional implementation leads are trained to do, and that's the outside observer version of the APERS. And the regional implementation leads can be called on as needed to come in and do an APERS on your program. They also, over the next few years, are going to be doing trainer of trainers on that. So people within the region will have an opportunity to learn how to do the outside version, the outside observer version of the APERS. But for now, what you guys have access to, and a really great tool to be able to use when you're starting out, is the APERS self-assessment form. And you can download that. We have a fillable PDF, or you could just print out the paper version and do it by hand. We also have a version of this on Google Forms that I'll tell you about when we get a little bit deeper into how you access all this stuff. And this is what the APERS looks like. It's a rubric, basically, and it has different domains that the teachers are filling it out on themselves about, or that you're looking for when you're going in and doing this as an observer. And there's criteria for meeting the different components of the rubric. And it looks at different domains. There are 10 different aspects of high quality programming that the APERS looks for: learning environments, positive climate, assessments, curriculum and instruction, communication, social competence, personal independence and competence, functional behavior, family involvement, and teaming. Those are the 10 different domains that are looked at through this APERS. The classroom observation form is another tool that you can use to help assess where people are at. And this is basically 4 core areas that we would be looking for, from classroom structure, visual supports, functional communication and positive behavior, and teaching strategies. And this is just sort of a quick glance if you're going in and observing the program to see where their areas of strength are, and where the areas are that they need a lot of work, and where some emerging areas might be. And this is, granted, far less objective and more subjective, and relies on you really knowing what these things are that you're looking for. But it can be a really nice way of organizing your observations so that you can identify what the evidence-based practices are that a program or teacher might need additional training in. And then the third tool that we have for you to help with assessing is called the Training and Confidence Survey. And this is where you're asking the teachers or whoever's involved in your training what training they've already received on autism and evidence-based practices. They've had no training at all, maybe a little intro overview, or maybe they've actually had some hands-on training in some of these practices. And then asking them about their level of confidence. If somebody's had training but doesn't feel confident, that's an easy, quick win to go in and do some coaching to help build their confidence with using that practice. Whereas if they've had no training and a low level of confidence, you can probably anticipate it's going to require a few more coaching cycles and a little bit more support. So this just kind of gives you a baseline of where your trainees or potential trainees are in terms of their knowledge and understanding of evidence-based practices and autism. And those tools and resources can all be found on the Captain website. And these are the embedded links. So if you have the PowerPoint open, or if you want to save that to your desktop, to click on those links to find where these different resources are, that's available for you. All right, so you do some assessment, you get an idea of where your potential implementers or trainees are. The next thing is to identify what EBPs are you going to train and coach them on. And so these should be based on the needs reflected in the data and in your observation. And the realistic amount of evidence-based practices that a team can get training on, receive coaching on, reach fidelity on in any given school year is about 3. I've actually gotten up to 4 one time, like with a super motivated team and all the best context. You know, they had professional development days already on the calendar. We had them all scheduled out. It was the best scenario, and I was able to get a team of teachers and paras to fidelity on 4. So be realistic. We ask that you do 3 teachers or programs, and be reasonable in terms of how many evidence-based practices you think you'll be able to get them to fidelity on in a given year, okay? And of course, we went over with you guys during the first part of boot camp how to go about selecting evidence-based practices for individual students. You can also use this tool when you're thinking about selecting evidence-based practices for a particular program. So if you're working in a high school program, you know that the evidence-based practices you really want to hone in on are those that are highlighted in green, or possibly some of the ones in blue that are also highlighted in green. Okay, if you're working with a preschool and you're working to build their use of evidence-based practice, you want to focus on the ones that are highlighted in yellow. And if you think about the placement, the type of placement, and what the major challenges of the students with autism in that placement are, you might be able to hone in on a few of these. A lot of times it's challenging behavior that teachers are needing and wanting some support with. So you can use this not just to select individual evidence-based practices, but it can help you narrow down what the ones are that you want to hone in on for a program as well. So those are a couple of your tools for helping with selection of evidence-based practices. This, coupled with the APERS, is going to give you a lot of information to help narrow down those 28 to 3 that you're going to be able to do in a given year. The 3 highest priority, biggest bang for your buck, the ones that are most aligned with the areas of need on that APERS. That's going to be the process that you're going to go through to make those selections. All right, so now your turn to think about this. I've got some scenarios up here, and I want you guys to go through and pick one of these scenarios that sounds most like the situation that you might be in. And I want in the chat for you to put the number that you're talking about. Are you doing scenario number 1, number 2, number 3, or number 4? And identify what the possible evidence-based practices are that you would narrow it down to. So scenario 1 is this. Your data from your district shows that the district is suspending students with autism and conducting a lot of FBAs at a disproportionate rate to other students with disabilities. So they're going straight to that tier 3 and using a lot of highly restrictive and forms of discipline. So suspending and FBAs. What are some of the evidence-based practices that you could hone in on to help address this issue that your data is telling you exists within that particular district? So I see some people responding in the chat. That's scenario number one. So put a 1 and then the practice or practices that you think you might be able to hone in on. Very good. Antecedent-based interventions would be definitely one of my go-tos. All right, scenario number 2. Data shows that students with autism are accessing the least restrictive environment at rates well below other disabilities. And by the way, this is what our state data shows. We're not doing a very good job of including our students with autism. What EBPs could you train people on to help address this particular issue? What evidence-based practice? Somebody put one-on-one aids, LOL. Yeah, that's not an evidence-based practice. Depends on what they're doing, but yeah. Okay. Scenario number 3, program walkthroughs and teacher APER self-assessments reveal that there are very few environmental supports in place that are supporting the needs of students with autism. What evidence-based practice or practices could address this issue? And then the 4th scenario, review of your IEPs for many students in the program indicate that they have communication needs and goals, but during program walkthroughs and on teacher self-assessments, there is very limited use of any evidence-based practices observed that specifically address the area of communication. What evidence-based practices could address this issue? All right, so I'm seeing lots of good ideas coming up in the chat. And really, there's no wrong answer. The rightness of your answer is going to depend on a lot of things. But generally speaking, scenario number 1, we want to put some things in place at tier 1 and tier 2. And antecedent-based interventions is definitely something that we could put in place at the lower tiers. Things like visual supports, things like peer-mediated interventions are all things that could be done before it reaches the level of needing that really highly intensive FBA, and that could really change the way people are thinking about behavior so that they aren't going straight to suspension and excluding kids. For scenario number 2, you know, one of the main reasons that our kids are not being included is because of behavior. So anything under that behavior domain, you think about the fit for how that evidence-based practice could be utilized in a gen ed setting, because fit is really important when you're considering which evidence-based practices. There are a lot, antecedent-based interventions, visual supports are a couple that often do some nice things there. And then also, you know, it could be academics. It could be that the teachers don't know how to actually use evidence-based strategies to teach these kids reading, writing, math. So you could focus on any of the evidence-based practices that really strongly link to academic performance. Program walkthroughs. A lot of you I saw on that one said antecedent-based interventions, visual supports, naturalistic interventions, absolutely. And then scenario number 4, many students in the program have issues with communication. That could be functional communication training. It could be AAC. It could be naturalistic interventions. But do you see how sort of having the area of need and using that evidence-based practice matrix, the age group, the domains, what the teacher says is a strength and area of need on that APERS can help you really hone in on the 3 that you want to focus in on with any teacher or program. All right, step 3. Getting buy-in and establishing your training and coaching plan with the administrator. You got to get buy-in from the staff and the administrator, and you got to get the support that you need to be able to do the work that needs to be done. So buy-in needs to be established with administrators as well as teachers, and there's lots of different ways to do that. One really good way is to do the what are EBPs and ASD information session. And if you do a really good job of that, you're going to pique people's interest. You're going to get them thinking about what they know and don't know about autism. And if you do a really good job selling them on how effective these evidence-based practices are, when you go to the next level of offering an EBP training, You're going to get a lot of people wanting to come to learn these new things that have the promise of being able to help improve their outcomes. Share out your data from step one with strategic groups and have them co-select the evidence-based practices. Don't tell them what they need, help them see what they need. Because if they are able to do, for example, the APER self-assessment, and they go, oh, wow, we're not doing so good on, functional communication or the domain of communication. What are the evidence-based practices that you've got that could help with that? Okay, they're bought in. And you could suggest, well, we could do this one or that one, or let's look at the chart and make a decision together. But getting them to buy in and co-select those evidence-based practices is a lot better than you coming in, filling out your little form, walking out, coming back in and going, you need this, this, and this. Teachers aren't going to like that very well. That's their classroom. That's their domain, right? And so getting their buy-in, getting them to co-select, getting them to come to these conclusions themselves and giving their input about what they want to learn, that's really a way more effective method. And then, of course, it always helps, especially when you're starting out, and I cannot stress this enough, select your highly motivated staff and programs first. There is a whole science behind the uptake of new practices. And what it tells us is that in any system, you're going to have early adopters that are going to be the eager ones to step up to the plate first. And they're going to be the easiest ones probably to get rolling and to get coaching and to get using. And then they're going to tell two friends who one of them is going to go, I want to be next. And the other one's going to go, I'm not so sure yet. So then you get that next wave of people who have heard it from the early adopters and they want to be next. And they're coming to you the next year going, hey, can I get training on that thing too? Can you come in and do coaching for me? And then you're going to have the later adopters, the people who are going to want to sort of lay back and check it out for a little while. And eventually they're going to see it all happening and they're going to want to come to the table. Okay. Don't start with the ones who are the most resistant. Don't start with the ones who are in need of the most help. I know that sounds strange, but a lot of times the ones that are most resistant are going to give you the most trouble in learning and adopting these things. And that's not a good place to start for you guys. Okay. So we have an analogy that we use in Captain. We talk about gravel, asphalt, and mud. You think about it, you're the trainer and coach, and you want to get traction doing this Captain stuff, doing these EBPs, getting the momentum, getting the buy-in. Are you going to gain traction easier on gravel, asphalt, or mud? Asphalt, for sure, you're going to get going faster. Those are your early adopters. Gravel, you can actually gain traction, but you're going to spin out for a little while, right? And probably kick some rocks here and there. Mud, you're just going to spin and you're going to get burned out and you're going to get frustrated. Okay. So when you're thinking about, especially this next year or two in your Captain work, start with those early adopters, those eager people, and recruit them to be part of your initial phases of this work. Ask for volunteers. After you do a training, say, I get to coach 3 people. Are there any volunteers that want to take this to the next level? Here's a sign-up sheet. Tell us your interest. Although we might not be able to accommodate all of you this first year, we have the ability or the capacity to coach 3 programs or teachers, and then everyone else will have a chance in coming years. Ask for them to self-select to be part of this. Have past implementers help you recruit new implementers in the coming years, and test your new coaching skills with a partner who's going to be kind to you as you're learning to do this, right? This is a new skill set for a lot of you, and you're not going to be perfect at it at first. I heard this the other day and it really stuck with me. You know how when you go to make pancakes on the weekend, you know how there's that first pancake? The first pancake never turns out, right? Because you've got the griddle too hot, or you haven't quite got it just right yet, right? So you want to select the best partner to be your first pancake. because chances are you're going to have some missteps or be learning and figuring things out, and you want to have somebody who's really going to be supportive. So we have a form called the Training and Coaching Plan that is a resource to help you map this out for the coming year. And this is something I'd encourage you to do if there are multiple cadre in your district or in your SELPA that you do together. Kind of figure out who's going to do which training and how you're going to divide and conquer the different people who may volunteer to be part of your coaching. It's also really good to go over this with your directors, the people who are supervising you, so that you get their buy-in and understanding of what this all means and what it all looks like. Yes, you have access to this presentation. This PowerPoint is in the handout section, and it is a PowerPoint, and it has all of these links to the different tools and resources right there. All right, so we've gone through the first few steps of being a cadre. I want to pause now and see what questions that you guys have so far. So you're welcome to enter them in the chat. If you're brave and you want to come off mute and ask it with your real voice, it would be awesome to hear someone talking besides me for a minute. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have so far.
I have a question. Hi, my name's Shomonique. I had a quick question about, are there any requirements around the number of people that we need to reach out to for dissemination?
Great question. No, but we will ask you to estimate the number of people that you've disseminated things to. So, you know, we might ask you what different things did you do and how many attended, and was it parents, was it teachers, and that'll all be in that annual survey. So at this point in our data collection, we're not asking that you have exacts, but do try to keep track. Because that will be helpful for you when you go to do your survey in May. Great question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We can train other people, like we can train other coaches.
Yeah, you can. And here's what I would say about that. It's a really great way to build capacity, but you have to be really good at coaching before you can train other coaches. So
Done. Okay.
Okay, and we're going to be actually giving you some resources for how to train and coach coaches. If you come to those 3 professional learning network meetings that we're having, those slides, all of the resources that we use are going to be available to you. But I would suggest before you start training and coaching other coaches that you give it a shot. Do 1 year, train and coach 3 teachers, get some lived experience of what it's like so that you have some real valuable things to be able to share with the people that you're training as coaches.
Hi, Patty. I have a question.
Information? I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I'll go for it. I just wanted to know when we will get information regarding those 3 dates.
It was actually on one of the intro slides. We're going to be announcing it tomorrow at the summit as well. Okay. And then we'll be sending out through our Facebook, and you guys will be getting invitations to register through email. December 6th is the first date.
It's not my question, but it was actually in the chat, and I thought it was a very good question being asked about the morale. So I work at the SELPA. It's a little bit different for me, but there are a lot of teachers I've seen that are burnt out. A lot of people are tired. It is a very sensitive thing to be bringing anything new, even if it is something that can help make a difference. So where I appreciate the strategies, I'm interested in knowing, do you have any specific examples of you working with people or kind of really helping people through this level of morale and being open to something new? Because I know even listening here, it's a lot. And even in the way that you guys talk about teaching, like that hasn't actually been my experience since 12, right? So just like, because it's a lot to take in. So just taking that into consideration of what we're going to be offering other people, what suggestions and strategies do you have to actually support us through that?
Sure, and it's such a fair question, especially right now. And we actually, our keynote speaker tomorrow is going to be talking all about burnout and giving you guys some amazing strategies for thinking about burnout and how to approach people depending on the type of burnout that they're feeling. So, you know, part of it is sort of assessing, you know, what type of burnout and where on that spectrum of burnout different people are. But I think more so now than ever before is getting the people to volunteer to do it. based on an immediate need that they're having. And so we've had a lot of success so far this year because a lot of kids are having major issues with anxiety, right? Returning to school and having tons of anxiety about different things. And a lot of our kids on the spectrum, it's, anxiety about mask wearing or about germs or, not having had social interactions for a while, they're experiencing a lot of anxiety. So really targeting to evidence-based practices around the humongous needs that are facing all of our teachers and educators this year, and honing in on that and being really gentle with them and taking it at a pace that's going to work for them. You know what? If you can't do 3 EBPs this year and you're only doing 1 that really focuses on that specific need, wonderful, wonderful. Like, kudos to you. You read the context, you found the motivated person or people, and you honed in on a really specific need that they had. We ask that you just really kind of do your best, but hopefully tomorrow you'll get some good ideas too about that issue of burnout and how to approach people and address people. Great questions, you guys. All right.
Oh, I have one more. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yep. Go for it.
So what is our year? Is it the school year? Is it from here to through November, or because we just missed the beginning of the school year and that would be a great time to do a training?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we have to do nominations to know who can be a cadre before we do the summit and kick things off. So our unit of measure is actually an academic school year. If you kind of missed that window or that opportunity to get in there, from the jump and plan your training plan, that's the conversation you want to be having with your SELPA director or your agency leader about next year. And then for the rest of this year, just trying to figure out what you might be able to do on a smaller scale. But it is an academic year. So we use the school year as our kind of unit of measure.
Patty?
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat from Jason asking, how do we submit completion of the requirements? So the info sessions, training, and coaching.
So the survey that you get in May is going to ask you for specifics about the training and coaching that you've done this school year. We actually are in the process through our SELPA Content Lead grant of developing a data system where you guys will be able to pick up your phone and type in the stuff that you've done. It'll be able to document who attended your trainings, what the pre and post knowledge assessment scores were, but we're not going to be able to actually launch that data system until next year because we want to do a lot of beta testing and get the kinks and bugs worked out. So for now, you're going to be keeping track and you're going to be using the training and coaching plan. And if you decide you want to use the Google Forms that we've developed for you, then that'll be an easy way of being able to keep track of who's been trained, how many trainings you've done, and that sort of thing. But right now it's mostly self-report.
And then another question from Dottie in the chat was asking, who will they be submitting information about your coaching sessions to, and how can you receive feedback to grow as a coach?
Great question. I'm going to get there, so I'm going to kick that one down the road a little bit. But great question, and I love that you are asking about building your own skills, because we really are hoping to support you guys with that this year and have some resources for you for that. So I'll get there for sure. Okay, well, let me keep moving with our steps then. So after you've assessed, after you've selected, after you've laid out your plan, the next thing to do is to do some really good high quality training. So to provide that quality training on that evidence-based practice that has been co-selected or selected based on need, where you've assessed the needs of your program or teachers or your district. And on December 6th, which is our first professional learning network, we're going to go into this a lot more in depth. But basically, the planning checklist for designing evidence-based practice professional development. It's a resource for you on the Captain website. Outlines the steps for making sure that you're designing a really good, high quality training. And notice on this form, it asks you to summarize your data. So it's not enough just to give the pre and post. You got to analyze the data, right? You got to use the data for future improvement. So it asks you to summarize your pre-assessment average, your post-assessment average, identify if there were any commonly missed questions, because that tells you what you might need to do next time you do a training to enhance that portion to help people understand it better. If you're going to be doing coaching with any of the people following the training, what are the things that you might need to really review with them and pay special attention to when you're doing coaching? And then a place for you to identify if there's any revision needed in your training before you do it again. Okay, so it has all of the components of high quality training and then a place to be able to really analyze and evaluate what your data is telling you about your training. We've developed training PowerPoints on the evidence-based practices, and they're on the Captain website. You also can access these in Google Slides and or PowerPoint through your regional implementation lead. And at your next regional meeting, the regional leads are going to explain to you how you can go about accessing these pre-made PowerPoints. But inside of these PowerPoints, we've embedded all of those high quality training practices and have suggested activities that you do that will help you make sure you're meeting that fidelity of high quality training. So we have different practice opportunities embedded. We have opportunities for discussion that are embedded. We have video examples linked that are accessible through Affirm. And then we have the planning and implementation checklist that helps prepare them for the next step. If they do the planning portion within the training or after the training, that's helping them to get ready and get set up to actually use the practice. So those are all available on the website already for you. The top 10 most commonly trained EVPs are already there for you. And then at your next regional meeting, your regional leads are going to go over how you can access them through Google. So you have the pre and post assessment, the slides, and all of the resources that you need. And of course, you have the Affirm modules, which is another great way of being able to help build knowledge about the evidence-based practices, but it by itself isn't going to result in them implementing. So, all right, step 5, we're halfway there. Establish the coaching relationship and expectations. So have a meeting with administrators, coach, and implementer. Okay, we call this our 3-way agreement. The administrator needs to understand and be able to state the goals of the Captain project and the expectation of both the coach and the implementer. And notice here it says the administrator needs to do that, because we don't want you going in and laying hands on a coaching interaction until that administrator really understands what coaching is, because it is not evaluative and it is not a substitution for dealing appropriately through HR and through all of the leadership measures if you have a teacher with performance issues, right? Coaching is not that. Coaching is a relationship that you enter into with a teacher voluntarily with the goal of helping them to get better at implementing a specific skill or practice. Okay, so there's a question in the chat, which administrator? SPED administrator, site administrator? Yep. Yeah, a lot of times it's both. And sometimes it depends on who is overseeing that person. And, you know, a lot of times we'll have the administrator part of this agreement go to the site administrator and the district administrator. So both are really informed and aware. The last thing that you want to do is have this be turned into some kind of grievance or issue with your collective bargaining unit, or have it be perceived that you are there to critique, evaluate, or you know, provide information in some way that's going to be used against the teacher or paraprofessional. So have that meeting. The administrator should be the one explaining and stating the goals. clarifying that the relationship is not evaluative and it's a very positive and supportive agreement. So we've actually mapped out a three-way agreement. The three-way agreement identifies and spells out what the coach agrees to do. So if you're the cadre, that might be you. What the recipient, the teacher, the paraeducator, speech therapist, whoever it is you're coaching, agrees to, and what the administrator agrees to. Okay, so it's clear. Roles, expectations from the beginning, before the relationship ever begins, is mapped out. And we've had a lot of our cadre and a lot of our districts actually take this to their collective bargaining units and make sure that the language is all in alignment, with the collective bargaining agreement that's been made. That may be something you talk to your administrators about when you go back after this to decide what's the best way of being able to move forward. But this agreement is essential to helping everyone understand what the expectations of coaching are and are not. That's available on the Captain website. We also have an example of a training and coaching model that you guys can access to be able to see how one of our SELPAs did it. They have some great resources and sort of mapping out over the course of the year what the expectations are for you guys to look at. So that those are linked to those examples and they're available on the Captain website. All right, so you've assessed the need, you've selected your EVPs, you've done a really awesome high quality training, you've gotten people to agree that they want to be coached, you've set up the contingencies and the conditions of coaching so everybody knows what their role is, what the outcomes of coaching are going to be. So the next thing you need to do is you need to develop a goal using goal attainment scaling for how you're going to measure progress in the coaching and in the use of the evidence-based practice. Okay, and goal attainment scaling is something that can be used for an individual student, or it could be used for a program or classroom. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about both so you know how to apply it depending on the situation that you're in. Because sometimes you're going to be called in, hey, we've got teacher Sally, she's got this student with autism, she doesn't know what to do. Can you go in and do some training and coaching with her around Billy, because Billy is a student with autism really struggling. Okay, and so your coaching is going to be specific to Billy, and the relationship with that teacher and the EVP selection is going to be around Billy. Sometimes it's going to be, hey, we've got this program, we've got, an ASD program or an SDC or a resource classroom or whatever, and they've got multiple kids with autism and the teacher's really struggling and wants to learn some EVPs to be more effective. And so it might be an overall program or classroom that you're working with. But in either situation, goal attainment scaling is an awesome way of being able to use the data to show if the practice is working. To be able to change the behavior, the goal, or the skills of either the child or the classroom staff. It's not a substitute for IEP goals if you're doing it at the student level, but it can augment or supplement those in a really, really nice way. So it's pretty simple. It's a 5-point range of performance for student or programs or teams, with the 0 level being the current level of performance. And then you set an initial, a secondary, and an expected level by the end of the year or the end of the time that you plan on providing the support. And then you go to the next level and say, and what would it look like if we surpassed what we might expect of this student or this team by the end of the school year? Okay, so you're sort of mapping out those benchmarks or those progress steps. And then you're checking in at each coaching session to see where the team or the student is on the goal attainment scale at that particular time. So right here is an example of what it would look like for a program. So present level, currently the classroom teacher reports that our students are having difficulty transitioning between classroom activities, and it's causing significant delay in instructional time. Okay. The initial objective is that the staff would complete the Affirm module regarding visual supports to support student behavior during classroom transitions. Secondary objective, Staff begins utilizing the implementation checklist for visual supports to create a daily schedule to reflect the activities during the day. The third goal, staff increase their implementation of visual supports during at least 4 out of 5 of the transitions that occurred during the day by priming the students, using the visual cue about the activity that's coming up next. And then the exceeded goal might be that staff increase their implementation of visual supports during the day, at least 4 out of 5 transitions that occur, as well as using it to support classroom instruction, okay. Another really nice way to map this out is at 60% fidelity, at 70% fidelity, at 80% fidelity, and using that implementation checklist to help set the benchmarks. They'll have completed the planning phase. They'll have completed 50% of the implementation phase. And then your exceeds might be that you're doing some kind of maintenance monitoring on the use of that practice. Okay. We could also use it for that individual student. And so this is an example, and these are both on the website, by the way, if you want to see examples of the goal attainment scales filled out for a particular student. And so this is really, you know, written like an IEP goal that's broken down with the different benchmarks. But this is going to be your way of knowing, did the EBP we picked for Nate to improve his voice volume, is it helping? Is it working? Because if you get to your 3rd coaching cycle and Nate still isn't really responding to the evidence-based practice, you might want to think about whether or not you need to add a different EBP or you need to rethink the EBP. If the staff is at fidelity and you're not seeing any improvement with Nate, then that's a good indicator that the EBP selection might not have been spot on. All right, and so you'll find those resources for goal attainment scaling on the Captain website under Captain Resources. Okay, another round of questions. Somebody else talk for a minute.
Well, I have a quick question.
Okay.
I understand that the coaching is really meant for teachers, but if I am working with a really motivated, say, behavior aid, right, that's in a gen ed classroom, so I'm really just working with them and they would like to be coached, can we use that with them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what I would say about coaching paras, because yes, they need coaching, they need just as much support as anyone. They are implementers. They are expected to use these practices. And of course, we want them to use them well and with skill and confidence. The only thing that differs when you're coaching a paraeducator as opposed to coaching a teacher, the setting up or the planning of the evidence-based practice, you know, that's not the role of the paraeducator. It's really the role of the credentialed teacher or case manager, right? Teachers are supposed to plan instruction and paras are supposed to implement instruction. Those are the roles and responsibilities. If paras are the ones planning instruction without the support of a credentialed teacher, then you guys have a systems issue you probably need to have a conversation about. They're doing something outside of the scope of their expertise, and that can get a little dicey. So what's even better is coach the para and the managing teacher at the same time, and have the managing teacher, whoever's in charge of that student's IEP, help to select and plan for the evidence-based practice, teach the para how to implement and report back the data on how it's going to the teacher, and have that coaching dyad taking place to where you're supporting both of them and learning how to collaborate and work together.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a quick question from Kern County. We have like 50 LEAs. So like if we only coach like 3 teachers, like people would throw rocks. So we have many more teachers that I'm going to be coaching throughout the year. I don't know, any ideas for like regional, because we have regions, we have some set up for like regions of regions, because we have a bunch of small rural that might want to meet together, maybe a couple big districts that might want to get together and do something. But just any ideas for the future for SELPAs that might be in a similar situation? It'd be welcome.
So I think a lot of that is systems conversations around what is in the capacity of the people that are providing the coaching to do. And, you know, if that's your only job, then yeah, you could probably coach more than 3 teachers. You know, if it's your full-time job to be an implementation coach for autism, which I would love that job. So let me know if anybody's hiring for that role, because I might take it. If that's your only job, then yeah, you probably have the ability and the time and the context to coach more than just 3 teachers. But you will have exceeded your captain expectations, which is wonderful. Coaching coaches is the other thought that immediately comes to my mind without knowing a lot of the specifics. If you can coach three coaches to then each coach 3 or more teachers, then you're expediting the capacity building process. You know, you coach 3, they coach, you know, 12, et cetera, so forth. So thinking about models where you can build capacity in those multi-district SELPAs is the direction that I would tell you to go. There was one other, someone started to speak
I had a
up.
question. Yeah, I had a question about the summit training you mentioned. What are the dates for that?
I'm sorry, what was your question again?
Was there a training in December?
December 6th, we're going to be doing a professional learning network for schools cadre to help you learn more about how to do high quality training.
Okay.
And you guys will get, believe me, you're going to like get sick of hearing from Captain about things. You'll get emails telling you when they are, how to register, all of that. But December 6th is the first professional learning network for teachers. I have a slide at the very end that I'll show you again too that has all the dates and times. I don't know, maybe if Tana or Gavin could put those dates in the chat, dates and times in the chat, that would be awesome. Thanks,
Patty,
Ann.
I have a
you.
question. It's not mine, but it's a good question. So I'm going to
Okay.
ask it. Lauren asked actually about when you're focusing on who you want to support, should you be focusing on classrooms that have consistency in terms of attendance? Because we are dealing with the fact that people aren't, you know, coming, you don't have subs, or you have subs and they're inconsistent. So when we're looking at supporting 2, how should we be taking that into consideration?
Yeah, another tricky circumstance, right, that we're dealing with right now is attendance. So, you know, it's one of those unknown variables right now, because even a classroom that has really strong and consistent staff, somebody might get COVID, and then, you know, the whole classroom ends up being disrupted. So I would say during our current context that, you know, you want to really be thinking about the staff consistency, and the student consistency is going to be variable. And that's true in any given year, even without COVID. You know, a lot of our kids go out sick or are gone for periods of time. And you have to figure out how to be flexible, because if you're going in, say, for example, to support a specific student, and the focus of your entire training and coaching is around that student, and that student's not there. Some of the things that I've done, and I know a lot of our other coaches have found, is, okay, so Johnny's not here and Johnny was our target student, but are you using visual supports with any other student? How about if I do an observation today of you using it with Susie, even though she's not, you know, the focal student, it's still a way of being able to observe and give feedback. So, you know, that can work as well. A lot of times, and our research really shows this, even if teachers are targeting a specific student for the use of an evidence-based practice, they start using those practices with multiple students pretty darn quickly and without a lot of like prodding to do so. They generalize. When they figure out something works, they're like, oh, I'm doing this with everybody, right? I want to figure out how to stretch this as far as it can go. They know a good thing when they see it. So, you know, just think about and plan for being flexible. The other thing is, video coaching is totally an option. And so having the teacher record their implementation with a student when they're there, rather than planning for you to come out and observe live, if you're dealing with a lot of those issues of attendance, that might be a really good model for you to think about. Because you can watch the video observation, you can fill out the implementation checklist, you can meet with the teacher on Zoom and do some reflective coaching with them. And you know, then you're not stuck with the date and time that you picked and then having to deal with calendar chaos. Great questions, you guys.
Hello, hi, I have a question. So,
all right, fire away.
So with regards to the video coaching, will there be a a secondary photo release that would be necessary in order to do that? So
yeah, great question. We're going to cover e-coaching in some of those upcoming professional learning networks a little bit more in detail. We actually have, we did a webinar about it last year that was recorded that you guys could watch on the Captain. I think it's linked to the Captain website. Otherwise, we can send that out to you guys or put it in the resources for this session. So a lot of it depends. And when I say a lot of it depends on if you're a self-employer, district employee, and what the policy of the district is. So a lot of districts will say, oh yeah, our generic release of information totally covers this. Some others would say, no, it doesn't, especially if the person doing the coaching is from the SELPA and not the district. So you're going to have to ask those questions, and don't try to answer it yourself. Go to your administrators, explain to them what you're wanting to do, have them give you the answer and give you the protocol that's appropriate for your context. But you know, a lot of this was done this last year, more so than ever before. So chances are somebody's been having some conversations about what is allowed and what isn't allowed, or what the parameters might be. So talk to your administrators.
Oh, just one more, sorry.
No,
The last couple of weeks in our county have been like the most shutdowns, most student outages and quarantine, and most teacher outages. So when that happens, like some of our districts they stop allowing outside visitors. So they add the restrictions. And if it gets to a point like where maybe it's like the winter and like we can't go do any kind of observations or coaching, I mean, are the captain requirements going to be like delayed, or is there any thought on that right now?
So what I would say is look into and explore the e-coaching options. You have an entire school year to fulfill the requirements, and we know things happen. I mean, last year, you guys are going to see our data tomorrow. Last year, I mean, the reality is that even our top performing cadre struggled to do training and coaching. It was just that kind of a year. So we understand, and we also know that there are some alternatives and that you just have to be creative. But this is the beauty of attending your regional meetings and having those linkages with other cadre. They have ideas that you can use that will help you to be able to figure out, even in the most grueling of circumstances, how to continue to do this work. Our survey last year also showed that even though training and coaching on EBPs became harder for us to do, the need for them increased exponentially. The need for teachers and paraeducators and parents and family members to know how to use these things skyrocketed because of all of the changes and all of the new expectations and everything having to do with COVID. So we saw some of the most creative strategies and tactics for providing the training and coaching this last year. And we'll share some of those with you guys tomorrow during the summit. But yeah, your network team members are going to be able to really help you, talk through and think through some of those difficult situations, and they will happen. They will. But we just ask that you do the best you can in the circumstances that you find yourselves in, and look to and lean on your other cadre colleagues for ideas and support. All right, you ready for the last couple steps here? Step 7, conduct high quality coaching. So what does that mean and how do you do it? Well, this is something that, again, is going to take a lot of practice, but we have an amazing model that we use here in California and through Captain that was developed by the National Professional Development Center for Autism. And the manual and videos and lots of resources you can get to online through the Captain website. We're also going to be doing a professional learning network about high quality coaching on February 7th. So mark your calendars on that. But we have the fidelity checklist that outlines what the components and steps are to conducting high quality coaching. One of the most valuable tools that you have in your arsenal for doing high quality coaching is the implementation checklist developed by a firm. This basically, like I said in the beginning, is the mirror that you guys are going to be using and holding up whenever you're doing your coaching. So it breaks it down into 3 phases. There's the planning phase, the using phase, and the monitoring phase. And when you first start coaching, you're just going to support your implementers in doing the planning and getting everything set up. You're not going to be assessing any of the other stuff. You're just going to be working with them and looking at how they're doing with planning. Okay. Once they've got all the planning phase done, then you're going to be looking at their implementation and use of the practice and the monitoring of the practice. Okay, so it's kind of like your task analysis. You think about it in that way. This is like your task analysis for how to use the evidence-based practice. And you're just going to be going in and observing and helping them reflect on how they're doing with each of those components of implementation. One more thing about this, because we do have a little bit of time here. When you're doing the coaching process, the method that you guys are going to be learning and the method that Captain uses is reflective coaching, which means they fill this implementation checklist out on themselves. And yes, during your observation, you're filling it out as well. But you're not going to go, and this is how I scored you. You're going to walk through a series of questions with your implementer, asking them, how do they think they did? What did they rate themselves on step 1? And through the methods of coaching, you're going to get them to identify what they did well, what they felt like they needed to improve on, and what they think is a logical next step. And through the coaching methods that we'll go over with you in February, you're going to learn how to ask them questions rather than tell them things. So open questions rather than giving them the next step. And I think here's the way to think about it. You want to help them develop the ability to self-assess so that you can be there for a short time and then leave. You don't want to be their implementation checklist. You don't want them to go, oh, I can't wait for Patty to come so she can tell me what I'm doing well and what I'm not doing well on, right? You don't want to create prompt dependence. You don't want to create a situation where they need you in order to improve on their use of practices. You want them to learn a set of skills for self-evaluating. In essence, what we're doing when we're doing coaching is we're doing self-management training for teachers and paras. And this is the data collection that we're teaching them to do on themselves. And then we're transitioning control of this over to them so that it's not us giving them input, it's us helping them self-reflect and see what they're doing well and see what they might need to improve on. And by really skillfully using the coaching methods and asking those open questions, you're going to help guide your coaching recipients to the next step. And that's the skill part of this for you guys that, you know, we can go over it in a training and we will, but it's going to just take a lot of practice. So February 7th, that's when we're going to get into a lot of those methods. But you can also go to the Captain website. There are advanced, there's the MPDC Coaching Principles and Practices Manual that outlines the coaching process. They have a website that has videos. And then we also have advanced techniques for coaching presentation that we did as a workshop for a summit a few years ago, all about motivational interviewing. And if you want to learn how to do really, really good questioning and reflective practices, this workshop, this presentation, motivational interviewing, is amazing. But we're going to go over a lot of that on the 7th with you guys too. But these two will get you started. Again, help to build your knowledge, help to build your understanding, and then we'll support you as you start to apply these things out in the field. So coaching cycles. This is the basic structure of our coaching cycles. You do the training on the content. Training is important, but it's not sufficient. After the training, then you arrange for a pre-observation conference to identify the needs. Okay. If you're using your implementation checklist and they just went to the training, maybe the pre-observation conference is to discuss planning and where they're at and what they need help with in terms of planning for the implementation. Okay. You work with the coaching recipient to set their goals and identify the target skills that they want to master and use, or the steps that they want to implement before your observation. You conduct your observation either live or via video. Remember, it can be either or both. And then you provide post-observation feedback using those reflective practices from the Captain Coaching manual. You review the data and track progress. So that might be looking at where they're at with the fidelity checklist, looking at where they're at with the goal attainment scaling. And then based on that, you set a next step action plan goal and you repeat the cycle. And our research and data really shows that to get someone to fidelity, going through planning, implementing, and monitoring, it takes an average of about 4 coaching cycles to get them to actually reach fidelity. So it can go quicker, again, depending on the kind of prerequisite knowledge and skills of the person that you're coaching. The other thing is that some of these steps can be combined. I oftentimes will set my next step action plan and basically identify the needs, like combine these two. So where after I'm done doing the observation, I've given them feedback, I'm setting the next step, setting the next date for observation. So I'm cutting it down to just 2 interactions, the observation and the post-conference, pre-conference, and going like that. So it cuts down a little bit on the amount of time. The other thing is once you establish rapport with the person that you're providing coaching to, some of this can be done, over Zoom or on the phone, maybe over email, although I would have to have a pretty strong relationship with somebody before I started coaching them over email. Seems kind of impersonal. And this is definitely a very interpersonal, approach and method. So, but you'll find your groove, you'll find your way of doing things, and you'll find the best fit in terms of what's going to work for you and your teams. April 4th, Professional Learning Network, we're going to do a lot about coaching cycles and fidelity and how to maintain and monitor EVPs after you've gotten someone to fidelity. We also have developed a coaching log. It's available on the website that walks you through and gives you a place to be able to record all of these components and information that you're going to need. We have this as a downloadable PDF and also a Google form. So if you're into Google Forms, we have this outlined in that way too. The roles are broken down here for you guys to review. Each person's role during the different phases. And hopefully one of the things that you'll see is that your role is really to guide, not to tell. And the implementer's role is really to tell you what they need. During the observation, this breaks down the implementer's role and what your role as the coach is. And this is all broken down in the manual, and we'll go over it a lot more in depth in the Professional Learning Network. A lot of it's common sense, but it's funny, some of the things that you forget to do. I was in a classroom actually last spring. They opened up the school and were allowing visitors, and we went in and there was a student that he would approach people and try to take your mask off. Like that was his behavior. Wanted to see your face. Like, who are you? I don't know you with that mask on. And so this was the behavior. And we hadn't asked if there were any behaviors that we needed to be mindful of as outside observers. And so when you've got this kid coming up to you trying to take your mask off, it can be kind of, so it just was a good reminder for me, like, if you don't know the kids, if you don't know the classroom, those are some of the things you need to ask for before you go stepping in there. Does anyone have any behaviors that we need to be concerned about? How do you want us to respond to them? Do you want to introduce us? And if so, what's the best way to introduce us to your students or the classroom? Do you want to explain to them why we're here? What are you going to say? All of those things are part of the conversation until you become, kind of a fixture in the classroom and the kids get used to you. And then we have the post-observation conference, the implementer's role and the coach's role. And again, very reflective, very much based on getting the implementer to identify and come up with the next steps. There is a sample coaching log on the Captain website for you guys to take a look at, so you can see what one looks like when it's filled out. And there's a link to all of the resources for high quality coaching. All right, 2 more steps. These are the easy parts though. You're done with the hard part. The hardest part is the coaching, honestly. Step 9 is assessing and sustaining outcomes. How many of you guys have like poured your heart and soul into working with a teacher and they got really good at doing the thing, whatever the thing was. And then, you know, you were like, okay, my work is done here. And you left. And then you had an opportunity to go back in, I don't know, months later, or maybe the next school year. And you walk in and you're like, what happened? What happened to all the things? You were doing all the things and now you're not doing the things anymore. Implementation drift happens, right? It's, you know, verging away from or veering away from a practice, adapting it or doing something, you know, maybe forgetting some of the steps. It happens. So there are things that we can do to be able to prevent that drift. Setting up time to complete fidelity checklist check-ins, even once coaching frequency has decreased. Have the implementer self-assess and send you the results. Like we're just going to do a video check-in, complete the assessment on yourself, and then let's talk. So you can help them kind of get back on track or remember some of the things that they may have forgotten. Have a sustainment goal as part of your goal attainment scale. Okay, so that last step on the goal attainment scale is after 6 months, staff will maintain use of this evidence-based practice with 80% or greater fidelity. And then here's the one that sort of makes it become part of the expectations and the natural work. Train the administrator what to look for during their regular walkthroughs. Because if the administrator knows what to look for and they know what these EBPs are, and it becomes an expectation of the teaching standards, which every single one of these EBPs align to the teaching standards. If you go on the Affirm modules, it'll show you exactly what teaching standard each one of these aligns to. If the administrator knows what to look for during their regular walkthroughs, then they can become sort of the maintenance person to make sure that the expectations remain, that these good practices sustain over time. So check in on gas and fidelity, even after consistent coaching. On the Captain website, we have an example of an administrator classroom checklist. Okay, and this basically goes through each of those 4 core areas that were outlined on the Captain classroom walkthrough, and provides specifics about what it should look like in that classroom and picture examples. And this really should be aligned to that specific context. Like the pictures that are here should be of that classroom. So if you're going to use and teach the administrator what to look for, you need to create this for them for those classrooms. Like this is the classroom schedule. And if it's being implemented, here are the things that you would see when you walked in there. Not some generic classroom schedule, but the classroom schedule that was developed for that classroom. And it's really easy to just take this template and change out the pictures so that it's of that specific classroom, so that administrator knows what it is that they're looking for in that program or that classroom. And it's going to look different in every situation, right? It's going to look different in a gen ed class than it is in a special day class. It's going to look different for older kids than it is for younger kids. So we don't want to give them just a generic example. We want to give them examples that are really true to that context. And that example of the administrator walkthrough checklist is linked and it's on the Captain website for you to look at. There is an update to that that's coming that aligns to the new California standards for the teaching profession. So that'll be linked to each of those components too, so you can see how that alignment works. And then we made it. Step 10, celebrate success. We have created implementation awards that we really, really love to bestow upon the teachers and the paraeducators and the speech therapists who have worked with you to reach fidelity of implementation on these evidence-based practices. And, you know, in education, we can't really do a lot to incentivize people, right? In other businesses and industries, I mean, my husband, he used to get like vacations as his motivator. If you meet all of your goals, then we'll send you to Mexico. Oh my gosh, he worked really hard for those vacations and I made him because I always wanted to go. But in education, we don't have a lot of incentives. The incentive is to see our students doing well. And the incentive is, you know, to avoid some of the challenges, the behavior challenges, and maybe some of the parental complaints and that sort of thing. But how often do we actually recognize and give teachers awards and paraeducators awards for their accomplishments? This is an opportunity to do that. And it's an amazing opportunity to celebrate their success in learning to use a new practice. So on the Captain website, we have a nomination form that you can fill out, has the criteria for awarding someone an implementation award. And we make a big deal about it. Like, we send an email to the director, to the superintendent, to the teacher, and to you and to your boss, and everybody's going to know that your teachers or paraeducators accomplished these. And we announce it every year at the Captain Summit. Like, this is a big deal. So if you've been able to, and you've worked really hard with a team or a teacher, and they've achieved the level of implementation, take the time to do this, because it's one small thing that we can do to really reinforce their efforts and to acknowledge them and to bring it to the attention of the higher ups, which is going to look good on you too, because you've brought these people to this level of expertise. So it's a win-win, and we really encourage you to do that. And the implementation award nomination form's on the Captain website, and it spells out exactly what you need to do to nominate someone, what level that they need to be at, and for how long. And you're going to see some being issued tomorrow, even in spite of during school closures and COVID. We had some teachers and some cadre help some teachers and paraeducators and families, because last year families were our coachees a lot of times, reach implementation fidelity. All right, you guys have a next step. After the summit, we want you to meet with the person that nominated you and whoever your direct supervisor is, the person who directs your daily work, because they signed you up for this, which means now they need to support you in doing this. And you need to map out how you're going to fit this in with all of the other things that they're asking you to do. And that might be the first time that you've had a conversation about the realities of being a cadre member and what it means. But you need to give the people who nominated you an opportunity to help work with you on how this can get done. And it might not be an instant. There may need to be some reorganizing of different responsibilities. You may kind of grow into the role. They may say, wow, with all of this going on this year, we think it needs to look like this, but next year we're going to to carve out more time for you. But this is one of your requirements, and it's a really important way to help you guys get the support you need to be able to do this work and get the needed and necessary supports to be able to do the work. Okay, so this form on the Captain website can help guide that conversation. I usually advise doing it right after the summit, And then again in the spring, as you're kind of wrapping up the year, to reflect on what went well, what was done, what the barriers were, and start planning and thinking about the next year, and what you might need to be done differently, or what supports may be helpful for you in the coming year. And then, as has been mentioned several times, this boot camp intensive introduction to captain and being a cadre member, we don't expect you to leave here today and just like know how to do it all and hit the ground running. This is an opportunity. These professional learning network meetings are an opportunity for you to come together with others who are new to it, just like you are, to get some tips, some more in-depth coaching, some more in-depth information sharing, some troubleshooting, some help with your implementation challenges. So put these on your calendar. The other thing is that every one of you is part of a captain region, and every captain region now has a regional implementation lead. It's the person that through our SELPA Content Lead grant is basically there to help you get the support that you need. Okay, and so you know, if you have additional questions, you want to sit down and have a conversation with someone, reach out to that regional implementation lead, and they'll either spend some time with you or connect you with somebody else that maybe has had that same challenge or that same issue or that same question, that can help to mentor you and support you. That's what this network is all about. And we are amazing at sharing. Why reinvent the wheel, right? If somebody else has already been there, done that, and has some solutions, then we want to know what they are. So with that, I think we have a little bit more time in our wrap up for any questions. And then we can get you all prepped for tomorrow so you know where you're going and what you're doing. So what questions do you have for me?
This is just a little bit related. So that admin walkthrough checklist, I just took a look at it and I love it. Is there, I just saw the PDF version though. Was there one that we can edit?
Yeah, we can send you an editable version of it. Just send an email telling us that you want it. I would wait though for the revised version because it's going to have the alignment to the standards for teachers. We're hoping to have that within the next couple, 3 or 4 weeks.
Patty, could I ask a question?
Yeah, of course, Paula. Hi.
Hi. Going back to the coaching cycle that you showed us, and you said an average of 4 coaching cycles to reach fidelity. Is that on one EBP? So like if we chose visual supports, 4 coaching cycles on that one. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And some teachers are faster, you know, and some take a little bit more. A lot of it just depends on, you know, well, a lot of it depends on a lot. You guys know. But yeah, the research and my experience, all of our experiences, it takes about 4 to get someone to fidelity. All right, so we're going to do a little check-in with y'all. I know this is a lot and you probably feel overwhelmed right now. And that's totally normal. I don't think that anyone who's ever come through a captain boot camp has left not feeling like, oh my gosh, this is so much. But having said that, we don't expect you to go out tomorrow and do all of those 10 steps, right? You have an entire school year and it's a growing process. You're going to be able to do some of these and others you might have to, you know, just scale down a little bit. You have lots of support that you can access and that we plan to provide you and hope to provide you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being, I am so excited. I can't wait to do this work. And 1 being, I'm not excited at all. What did I get myself into? I'm meeting with my SELPA director immediately after this and going, no, thank you. In the chat, where are you guys at right now? All right. I'm seeing lots of 7s, few 5s, few 6s, Ooh, somebody's a 9. Oh, there's a 1. Okay, I hear you. We get a few each year that go, I didn't know this was what I was getting signed up for. This is not my jam. And that's okay. You know, that's okay. If it's not, you just go meet with your SELPA director and say, thank you, but this is not for me. I appreciate it. I'm sure they'll tap you on the shoulder for the next amazing opportunity because you got picked for a reason. All right, so I see a range, mostly though 5s to, I saw a couple of 10s in there. People that said 5, okay? Those of you that were around about a 5, what would it take to get you to like a 7 or 8? What would
I
get
was
you
a
from-
4, so
You were
I
a
can
4?
yeah, I'm just I like authentic conversations, and I like to really address what's happening, and where I appreciate how we've touched on it and we'll get a chance to learn and see. Like, I like concrete, because at the end of the day, when I leave here, I'm facing that, and I'm very aware of the fact that teachers are on the brink.
Yeah.
And so for me, what it would take is probably hearing that, but also being able to have those concrete strategies and having my specific answers actually answered, or
Yeah.
at least, working on what I'm actually dealing with, so I have a clearer understanding of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, thank you, Michaela. I appreciate that.
Malika.
Malika?
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't have my.
no worries. It's
my
okay.
glasses on.
I've happened all my life. It's
Malika,
fine.
I completely appreciate that. And I'm the same kind of learner. And so if tomorrow during boot camp, you don't get enough specific ideas, will you do me a favor and reach out to either your regional lead or to myself or to Anne? And, we'll schedule some time and we'll have some conversations with you to help map out some things that you might be able to do in your specific context.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Absolutely.
Hi, Patty. This is Alyssa.
Alyssa?
Yeah, from Simi Valley. I actually wanted to do captain for years, and the opportunity presented itself this year because Julia McCarter went back to the classroom. So I took over for our district, but it is a really hard year. So I'm not at a 10 because I am very overloaded.
Yeah.
And we have a new behaviorist, and we're just slammed with assessments, and so I think that I would be more excited if I didn't feel so overloaded already.
Yeah, no, totally understandable. I think we're all there. When Ann and I went to go plan boot camp this year, we were so stoked and so excited that we were going to do it in person, because like connecting with all of you guys, you have no idea the energy in the room when we're all together and how much fun we have and how much amazing connection that there is. Just being able to like even go to happy hour and sit and, talk to the person next to you, and they're from a totally different part of the state. Yeah, you guys are encountering the same things. Like, it's pretty magical. And so we were so excited to have this opportunity to do it in person. And the reality is COVID's still a thing, and it's making it really difficult for people to travel and for large groups to get together. And we had to do the responsible thing, right? And decided to do it virtually again. So we get and absolutely understand the realities of this year in our current situation. And it definitely hampers the motivation. Good news is that I think that we're starting to see some light, some little glimmers of light at the end of the tunnel, and some things that are at least in some ways starting to return to some semblance of normal. And here's the other thing I'll say about the situation. We've actually learned a whole lot about how to do some of the things for captain more effectively and more efficiently as a result of COVID. For example, e-coaching. People were deer in headlights 2 years ago when we brought it up, like, no way, I can't even imagine. And now everyone's like, okay, I can kind of see how that would work. And you know what? It's going to be way more efficient because you don't have to drive there. You don't have to check in at the office. You don't have to walk to the classroom. You don't have to, all the things, right? That before were a barrier. I think that we have some kind of hidden things that we can take away from this and will help us. But yeah, we know, and we don't want to minimize that at all, because I know even some of our regional leads, I had a meeting with one of them the other day, and he said to me, I'm actually subbing in a classroom right now, so we probably need to reschedule this. Yep, it's the realities that's going on out there. So, all right, any other questions?
How do we sign on for tomorrow?
So tomorrow, yeah, we'll put the link to the agenda, the website in there for you. Again, it's a different link. It's not this same link. There's a different link for tomorrow that you'll be accessing and logging into. It's on the agenda. It's on the website. So it's in the chat right now. So if you go there, that'll take you to the agenda and tell you where you need to be and what time. And tomorrow, everyone, almost 500 of our team, our cadres, our leader will be together first thing in the morning, where we'll do our welcome, we'll do our keynote, and then we'll have our hot topics and year in review. And then you guys will break out into your job alike groups, where those of you that are here, school cadre, you guys are going to get some awesome information on strategies for overcoming implementation barriers. And then you'll be meeting at the end of the day with your regional teams. And when you meet with your regional teams, it's your opportunity to meet everybody, even though it's not in person. But you'll be looking at how everyone did on their captain goals for last year. You'll be setting a new goal for your region for the coming year and mapping out some of your plans for who you want to disseminate information to, how you can collaborate and work together on things. And you'll be setting up your meetings for the remainder of the year. So action-packed day. All right. Well, it was great to meet all of you. We're so excited to have you as part of our captain team and our captain family. We know that it's a rough year to join. Folks last year had it even rougher. They joined and then boom, everything changed. But we look forward to just supporting you and helping you to be able to do the dissemination and training and coaching so that we can help our teachers and our educators use these practices so kids can benefit. That's what it's all about, right? Kids can't benefit from evidence-based practices that they don't get to experience. All right. Well, I'm going to let y'all get out of here a little bit early then, and we will see you all in the morning.